HR is one of the most effective places to apply what we know about emotional intelligence. Besides contributing to better communication, relationships, and problem solving among current employees, emotional intelligence can also help you to identify the best candidates for positions within your organization. But there are some do's and don'ts of using emotional intelligence interview questions that I'd like to share with you. However, before we move forward with that, I do want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Tai Sawyer, the principal consultant at TM Sawyer Consulting, where we specialize in leadership development through emotional intelligence training. I help leaders outperform at their jobs using core emotional intelligence skills. Now let's start with the do's of using emotional intelligence interview questions. You do want to interview for emotional intelligence using behavioral event interviewing. Many of us have experienced this while interviewing from jobs in the past. Behavioral event interviewing is a method that allows you to see a potential employee's EI competencies almost firsthand. This is how it would successfully go. You'll be asked to you would ask a potential employee, or if you are a potential employee, you would be asked to tell a real workplace story, briefly, few sentences where you were the protagonist. And after having the outline of this story, the interviewer would then ask specific emotional intelligence follow-up questions about the story in hopes to get a good understanding of your emotional responses to what happened during the event. The same process would then happen again in a story where you failed, but again learned a valuable lesson and your emotional response to it. It would then be sandwiched with another positive story where you were the protagonist, and questions will be specific emotional intelligence related questions will then be asked of you to sandwich a positive story, negative story, positive story. And this helps the interviewer get a better understanding of your emotional responses in particular situations. Another do for interviewers is to call the references that candidates submit. During this time on the call, you can ask specific questions related to emotional intelligence. For those who are being interviewed, I would suggest following up with those who you are turning in as your reference, and maybe chatting about an emotional intelligence related story to jog not only their memory but yours, to discuss when they are called by an interviewer. The don'ts of using emotional intelligence the don'ts of using emotional intelligence interview questions include: do not use personality tests as a proxy for emotional intelligence. Personality tests may not measure specific components of emotional intelligence, such as self-awareness and positive outlet, achievement orientation, empathy, or inspirational leadership. You also do not want to use a self-report test. Self-report tests don't really work for two reasons. The first is that if a person is not self-aware, then they most likely aren't going to be able to accurately assess their own emotional intelligence. And secondly, if they are self-aware, you could be giving them the opportunity to exaggerate their skills or abilities, and make themselves seem like a better candidate than they really are for your workplace culture. And another don't is don't use a 360-degree feedback instrument, even if it is a good measure of emotional intelligence competencies. Those kind of tools, the 360-degree feedback, are best to use for development and improvement in your current employees, and not necessarily potential employees while you are evaluating and hiring. I hope the do's and don'ts mentioned here help guide you on assessing emotional intelligence in potential employees. Thank you for tuning in to this short video, and I hope to see you next time.